representatives of those scholarships here with us today to celebrate and demonstrate to you the love they have for Central. I have the pleasure this afternoon of welcoming to the podium President Roger Drake. He needs no introduction to those here, but we're so glad to have him as our president, celebrating his 5th year. 5 years here, and hopefully we can do another 40 with him and he can be here for the 85th. So, President Roger Drake.
It's kind of hard for me to believe, too. I've been here 5 years. My staff, Josh and his vice president colleagues tell me it feels a whole lot longer, but I've only been here 5 years. It has been 5 of the greatest years of my life. It is almost impossible to think that a person can make a living this way. Being around young people at such an amazing time in their life, graduating them from this place where they go on and make a difference in the world, and then they grow up to be people like these folks that I'll be talking about today. It's a great weekend to be at Central. You gotta love homecoming. We've just combined our Board of Trustees meeting with homecoming, so we've just finished 2 days of very, very active meetings, and I want you to take the time this weekend to go around campus, see the progress. You look down at the beautiful Classic Hall, look over on Mulberry Street at the Throckmorton Center for Allied Health, and while it doesn't look like much today, the Stedman Hall of Science. That's what progress looks like. That's the darkness before the dawn. But in the fall of 2018, our students will be studying in a renovated Stedman Hall of Science that benefited from a $10 million renovation made possible by the folks that love this college, by the folks who this place still tugs at their heartstrings. And these are the kind of people we want to talk about and honor here today. We're celebrating the 40th year of the Hall of Sponsors Scholarship Program. In 40 years, folks like the people that you're going to be hearing from today have contributed over 250 Hall of Sponsor scholarships. Today we're helping 250 students. As you go through the halls of Brannock on all the floors, you'll see the pictures of the donors. These are some of the greatest people, greatest leaders, greatest supporters of this institution. Sometimes I literally just wander the halls and I keep telling my assistant, no, it's not dementia. Sometimes I just want to wander the halls and see and read those plaques about the people that have done so much for all the students that have lived and learned here. But as you walk through the building and you look at the pictures of the donors, as important as that is, I also urge you to look at that little picture beside it of that current student who is benefiting from the Central Methodist experience. I can't tell you when I'm traveling around the country talking to alumni how many times that they tell me I was only able to benefit from a Central Methodist education because of the generosity of a Hall of Sponsors donor. Today we're going to be unveiling 3 new Hall of Sponsors awards, and you'll also get to hear from one of our fine students who's a grateful recipient of that scholarship. So first, I want to tell you about the Robert and Suzanne Kuntz Hall of Sponsors. Bob and Sue Kuntz were residents of Fayette and were faithful and forever supporters of Central. Sue passed away in 2007, and Bob sadly passed early this year. Following Bob's passing, his son and brother worked with the advancement team to establish this Hall of Sponsors scholarship. Bob was a 1957 graduate of Central. He was the son of Willie Mae Kuntz, in whose memory the Conservatory Recital Hall was named when it was renovated. Bob had a passion for all things Central and moved back to Fayette after a distinguished career in finance, retiring as the state auditor for Illinois in 1967. Sue retired at the same time from her work with Farmers Insurance Group. Bob and Sue were longtime supporters of the Ashby Hodge Gallery of American Art and avid attendees of the Little Theater and CMU opera productions. They will be missed on campus and in the community. Central's proud to partner with the family to honor both Bob and Sue in the Hall of Sponsors. So now, please help me and welcome Bob's brother, Bill, another amazing supporter of Central and the Ashby Hodge Gallery of American Art. Please help me welcome Mr. Bill Koontz.
Well, my brother went to school here, and he always spoke about the great experience he had in Fayette and at the college. One of the things I noticed, we decided that we were going to leave St. Louis and move to Central Missouri and started looking around, was that we came to Fayette over several times looking around. And one of the things I noticed very clearly was that every time we went into Max's, the bartender knew exactly who he was. The first time we went in there, the bartender at the far end of the room shouted, "Hey, Bob!" So I knew where my brother spent his extra time when he was in college. But anyway, my mother and father were very strong believers that the greatest asset that you could give to your children was a good education. And we were brought up in that world where we were told that that was the thing that was our responsibility to the family and to the future generations. So when Bob and I began discussing what we were going to do with his inheritances, we discussed it and decided that the best thing to do would be to establish a scholarship program here at the college. And so that really is how we got involved in this. But again, he loved Fayette. He loved Fayette and Central, and he talked to me many times about how glad he was that we had left St. Louis and come out to Fayette to live. So anyway, hopefully it will help somebody in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob and Bill mean so much to the community of Fayette and to Central Methodist. I want to tell you about the Dr. David and Lee Stewart Hall of Sponsor Scholarship. The class of 1959 adds yet another scholarship to their legacy. I don't want to offend anyone graduating from another class, but the class of 1959 is the coolest class that we've ever had graduating. This is the 17th Hall of Sponsor Scholarship unveiled honoring a member of the class of 1959. Led fearlessly by Jenny Bergston, the group has gifted Central over $500,000 in endowed scholarships. The class member that we're honoring this year is Dr. David Stewart, originally from Crystal City, Missouri. Now, you may not pay attention to television commercials the way that I do, but the Dos Equis beer brand seems to be a recurring theme of beer here. The Dos Equis beer brand boasts that they have the most interesting man in the world as their spokesman. I think they probably missed an opportunity with David Stewart, a minister in the United Methodist Church living and learning in a monastery, a PhD in geophysics, service as a college professor, author, speaker, and careers in hydrology, engineering, and seismology. Dos Equis, David Stewart is clearly the most interesting man in the world. The scholarship that we unveiled today is in honor of David and his wife Lee, who sadly passed last year. David hoped to be with us today. David has some mobility issues and wasn't able to make it, but please join me in thanking and congratulating David. And now I want to invite Vice President Josh Jacobs to share some words on David's behalf.
David wanted me to express how impressed he is with his class, as Roger indicated, but what that class has been able to achieve is really monumental. As President Drake indicated, 17 Hall of Sponsors scholarships honoring class members throughout the years. They started this project 23 years ago, and as a class they have been donating, and then as they donate and complete a new Hall of Sponsors scholarship, they draw a name from their class. And so it is a demonstration of their love of Central, their camaraderie as a group together, and David has been a consistent supporter of that over the years, and just really connects with this mission of donating to support the future of Central and the future students of Central. David also, in addition to those achievements that President Drake outlined, has worked for the Center of Earthquake Studies, the U.S. Geological Society, works in starting the International Association for Safe Childbirth. Works now and has set up the Center for Aromatherapy Research and Education, focused on essential oils, and has continued to publish and write and speak with over 300 publications and over 16 books. You can't slow David down, and just another demonstration of the energy that Central brings to its students. So on his behalf, he's excited for this today, and thank you again for your support of the Hall of Sponsors Scholarship overall. Thanks.
Next, we have the pleasure of announcing the Sherman and Naomi Roberts Hall of Sponsors Award. Sherman and Naomi Roberts were the parents of Celia Roberts Barnhart, class of 1965. Celia has spent her career in psychotherapy and counseling and started this scholarship in her parents' honor due to their support for her to attend college. Celia was a first-generation student, and her parents' support paved the way for her life and success. Let me go off script here for just a second and tell you just how difficult it is for a first-generation student to complete a college degree. The statistics say that for a student in the lowest SES quartile and who is also first generation, only has 1/16 of the chance of completing a college degree across the country than a student in the top quartile whose parents have a college education. 1/16 of the chance. 29% of our students today here at Central Methodist are first generation college, meaning that neither parent earned a single college credit. When I try to sound fancy, I tell folks that my parents had an 8th grade education. That's true, but you have to do some addition. Dad went to the 5th, Mom went to the 3rd. So technically, I'm first generation middle school. But imagine these parents, imagine Sherman and Naomi, how proud. I did not know Sherman, I did not know Naomi, but I know enough about the nature of human nature to know how proud these folks must have been of what Celia was able to accomplish against all odds, and then the way that she and her husband Howard are honoring her parents Sherman and Naomi today. So we are very happy to introduce to you Celia Howard Barnhart. I'm sorry, Celia Barnhart.
And at that, even many of you don't even know me as Celia, because I was CK when I was here. I am so proud of being able to establish this scholarship in my parents' name. My father, even though he just had an 8th grade education, was just brilliant when it came to math and always worked with me in that. And mother, who wanted to be a teacher, in her family, the girls didn't get to go to college, so she was a Sunday school teacher, so that's the way she made that transition. But it never even occurred to me, it's interesting listening to Dr. Drake talk, never even occurred to me that I wouldn't finish, never had even any thought like that. Because when Mother and Daddy brought me to Central in September of 1961, as we were getting close to Fayette, Daddy said to me, "Do you have any idea, Celia K., how long we've been planning for this day?" And I said, "I don't have a clue, no idea." And he said, "Since the day you were born." Well, that could have put a lot of pressure on someone, but I took it, and as I've grown through the years, it's meant more and more to me that they would have told me that. And I just feel very, very grateful. Being first generation, being able to pass that on to someone else, I'm sure there's nothing my parents would rather have. They did live, my mother died about 3 years ago at 97, and my dad was close to 90. So not only did they see me graduate with a degree, my sister, who spent 1 year at Central, Elise Roberts, graduated from a school in St. Louis, and between us we have 4 children, and of those 4 children with degrees, 3 have masters. So I think we did Mother and Daddy proud. I have to go back just a little bit and tell you, I've always wanted to do social work. I've always been interested in helping other people. But I think that the real part of that came from, we had a family-owned grocery store, my grandparents did. And that's, Dr. Drake, is where both of those, my grandparents had 4th grade educations. And had this wonderful grocery store. And my grandfather, when he died, I had people coming up to me and saying, if it wasn't for your grandparents, during the war and other hard times, we would not have survived, because they carried a tab for us at the grocery store. And the thing that was so amazing about that, before my grandparents died, everybody that owed them money had paid them money. I mean, I just find that almost unbelievable that could have happened. But when I was in 4th grade, a lot happened in 4th grade, but when I was in 4th grade, I would go to school, and 80% of my classmates in Salem, Missouri were from one-room country schools. 20% of us were from town. And so I had a lot of people that I knew that were friends that didn't have school supplies. So I would go in and tell Granddad what I needed, and he would give me the pencils and the crayons and the paper and whatever it was I needed. And I would take those to school, and I would slip them into the desk of those people who I knew weren't going to have supplies. And it's not often that I've told that story, never let anybody at school know, because I didn't want to embarrass anybody. So that was a lot of my beginnings, and reaching out to other people and trying to do things came from there. I did graduate from Central in 1965 with a double major in psychology and sociology, and then I did, 20 years later, after my boys were pretty much grown, I lived in the Chicago area at that time, and I went to George Williams College to get my master's degree in social work. And there I worked in a private practice there for a period of time, And when I married Howard and went to Arkansas, which if you think I have a strange accent sometimes, I don't think I have one, but people tell me I do. It was in, lost my train of thought, that I had a private practice in working with adolescents and their families. And if you would ever have told me that that's the group I would have worked with, I would have said you're crazy. But I wasn't the easiest child. My parents were both very calm, easygoing people, and I always thought I was a little more difficult than that, but they couldn't put much over on me. And so I loved working with them and working with their families. Parents learned they couldn't just drop their kid off because that wasn't the way it worked. They had to come too. I wanted to see where people sat in the room, but that's another story. But I am very, very grateful. I'm grateful to Howard, my husband of 30 years, and for what we have been able to do with scholarships not only here, but at his alma mater and medical school where he went. And I just want to say that it's been a real wonderful journey. We now have children. Our children are close, most of them, grandchildren and 2 greats. And we love to travel, so we do what we love, and every once in a while we get pulled into doing the other, which for Howard is radiology, and me was doing the social work that I loved.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to invite a Central Methodist student to the podium. Justin Smith is a senior exercise science major from Orlando, California. He's a Hall of Sponsors Scholarship recipient and a track and cross-country athlete. Justin is a 2017 recipient of the Athletic Department POGE Award, recognizing his GPA, leadership, team motivation, and overall going above and beyond as a student athlete. Justin is also an NAIA representative of Champions of Character. He's a Student Alumni Ambassador Board Executive member and Secretary of the SGA. Please welcome one of our finest and a recipient of a Hall of Sponsors Scholarship Award, Mr. Justin Smith.
So the alumni department and Dr. Drake have asked me just to kind of give a little bit of how my experience at Central has gone. I transferred from a school in Oregon actually last year, and I came on my first visit, and the first time I ever came to Missouri, December of last year, December of last year. So it was a little bit of a shock coming out to small town Fayette, Missouri. Like I said, I'm from a small town in California, but I always get asked the question of, why Missouri? Like, what made you come out here? And it's something that it's really hard to explain to people who haven't been on Central's campus, because you just can't really find this type of support and just general kindness that not only the students have, but all the professors, all the staff members. It's just really hard to find really anywhere that I've ever been at. So I can't really even describe it to people, because they just kind of think, that doesn't even exist. You go to college where, you can walk into any office and they'll call you by your name. They know your backstory. They're asking you. I had multiple people last year ask what I was doing for Thanksgiving, because they knew I was, obviously out of state. They didn't know if I was going to have a place to go, and it was overwhelming. I was like, man, I don't know if I can eat that much food if I go to 4 different families, but it was just, it's overwhelming the amount of support that you get from the people on Central's campus. And like I said, it's really hard to describe that to people. And I noticed that within the first honestly, hour that I was on campus. I came here, I had a couple long flights. Like I said, I didn't know a single person out here. It was a little bit overwhelming, and I went on a tour with my track and cross country coach. And so I was kind of going around doing, checking out all the buildings on campus. I was really tired at the time. And I went into the admissions office, and immediately they were sitting me down there saying, okay, here's what we have planned out for you. We checked out all your transcripts. Here's what transferred. Here's what didn't transfer. Here's a job opportunity if you're looking to find a job. We can get you connected with this person. We can get you connected with that person. And I was just kind of sitting there blown away like, man, I can't believe that, I've known this person for 2 minutes and they're already trying to help me out with all these different aspects that are really stressful as a college student. So I was very blown away by that. And within a couple of hours of being on Central's campus, I was like, this is the place that I want to be. Granted, it was the middle of December, and it wasn't cold, but it was very brown and kind of dead looking compared to Oregon. So when I moved out here last summer, my mom was like, man, this is a little different in California. I'm like, yeah, but it's green right now, so this is great. So that's kind of how I ended up getting here at Central. And due to that support that I had, it just kind of made it easy when I did end up moving out here last fall. And with that, I got involved with SGA. I was approached by the alumni office to kind of help get the Student Alumni Ambassador Board going, and a number of different activities that I'm involved in. It simply happened because I felt so welcome here and so comfortable here that I wasn't nervous to try something new. I wasn't nervous to meet new people. It just kind of clicked for me. So that's kind of how I got here on Central. But then some of the opportunities that I've had when I got here, especially working through the alumni office, has been pretty incredible. Like I said, last year we just started up the Student Alumni Ambassador Board. So we're trying to get that kind of going so we can start communicating more with bridging the gap a little bit between students and alumni, because a lot of times as a student you don't quite understand what the alumni are really helping with. I know before I started working in the alumni department, I had no idea how much support the alumni give to the school, and now that I see that, it's just very eye-opening, especially being a senior this year. Just wanting to be able to help students out like the alumni at the school, it really just opens your eyes and makes you want to give back to where you attended school. So I find that very fulfilling. And last year I also got to work the phone-a-thon. I'm sure some of you guys have probably been pestered at all hours of the nights by our phone calls. But I had a conversation with a man one time, and this was kind of the first time where I was just like, the alumni truly care about the students at Central. I obviously went through, I was making sure that we had all this correct information and all that stuff was going right. And I probably talked to this guy for about an hour and a half. And Jackie, I'm sorry if you're out there. I wasn't trying to just stay on the phone to burn time, but we just kept having great conversation. And we ended up talking about fishing, because I like fishing, and he said that he loved fishing. And I was trying to see if there was any good trout fishing out here, because that's pretty much all I fish for back home. So he's like, I found this great place in Colorado. You kind of have to go park your car, and you got to hike about 5 miles up into the Rockies. I was like, man, like this guy just, it was like I really would have liked to meet the guy. And it would have been great to have a face-to-face conversation with him, but just over the phone, you could just tell that the alumni truly care about students getting a good education, students being able to help students get an education. Because I had some financial aid issues drop through when about 2 weeks before I was going to move. And as you can imagine, moving halfway across the country and having your financial aid from underneath you to go to school can be a little bit nerve-wracking, to say the least. But like I said, it all just kind of worked out. There was always somebody along the way that was just, they said, okay, I'll talk to so-and-so to see what they can do, or yeah, go see them in that. It was just, there was always somebody that was helping me along the way. And like I said, I can't say enough about how inspiring that is as a student, just knowing that people are looking out for you. So with that, I really just want to say thank you to all the alumni who've given to the school, because like you said, we've gotten brand new buildings. I know a lot of my friends, and myself included, get financial help for school through the scholarship program. Stedman's currently getting built, which is going to be great to see next year once it's finished. So I mean, it just kind of all comes down to alumni really caring about this school. So like I said, I just want to say thank you to all the alumni for that, and I really hope that you guys know how much you guys are helping students here at the school. So thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Before we close, I want to point out that we've had a special guest arrive. Mr. David Stewart, Dr. David Stewart was able to make it after all. David, if you'd been here a little earlier, you'd heard yourself described as the world's most interesting man. We talked about all that you've done and all that you've accomplished, and we talked about your amazing class of 1959 and how that is the coolest class of students that have ever attended here. So David, we welcome you, and folks, if you have the opportunity, please stop and visit with the world's most interesting man for a moment. If you're in the crowd and you have any level of interest in starting a Hall of Sponsor Scholarship, please see one of our Advancement and Alumni Relations team members. And now, as you leave, I would like to invite you to enjoy the reception on the lawn hosted by the Student Alumni Ambassador Board. Thank you very much.